Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the library. We have a radically crazy week this week. We have a number of vet, eye doctor appointments, standard hospital visits, and just yeah. At least the doctor's visit will be a phone call. Although they tried to scam me into a visit. You can't have that. You don't like going to the doctors. As much as I love and appreciate my doctors, it's where all the sick people go. So it's, I think limiting the number of times you actually have to visit is probably a good thing. At least, like, using basic common sense. Perhaps there are. Yeah, yours is on site. Yeah, you're going to a freaking hospital. But if it's unavoidable, it's unavoidable. What are you gonna do, right? You gotta go where you gotta go. I'm playing with my glasses and I'm seeing my eyebrows go. Ooh, that really flickers it. Look at that. Boing, boing, boing. Anyways, silliness. Yeah, I know. Just being a dumbass old man doing silly things. Dixie. We have, aside from the craziest, we have the day off tomorrow, which is super nice. Kind of a trade, right? You get a day off, and then you work, twice as hard for both your employer and apparently your personal life. Fantastic, lovely. I'm definitely looking forward to the week of Canadian Thanksgiving. I have to say Canadian, I guess, because in theory, Twitch streaming is a global market, and has a global audience, and I know there are a few Americans who tune in. So it used to be my father and I way back when we would celebrate both Thanksgivings, both Canadian and American Thanksgiving, not for the holidays or whatever their respective meanings are, but because it gave us an excuse to buy another turkey. And then we did another one on New Year's. So Dad and I used to have 4 turkeys a year, just for the hell of it. It was a lot of turkey. I remember we couldn't get through it, and the turkey just kind of went. I don't know how many people have turkey hanging around their fridge for a long time. I think most people buy reasonable portions or sized birds for the crowd that they're hosting for, perhaps. But yeah, we it's just the two of us. We bought the biggest damn bird we could find. It was I guess back then it was one of our sort of our luxuries, I suppose. We didn't have a lot of other things. We had just gotten back from Australia, back to Canada, and we kind of parked ourselves in probably not the ideal community. It was a lovely community, but as it was very sort of close knit, hard to relate to, get involved in community, and there was not a lot of work in that area. Great for retirement, or if you're independently wealthy, perhaps. That was not us, and we ended up our financial reserves dried up quite well eventually. I suppose we were frugal because we knew what was happening, but we eventually ran out of money and things got tight. Yeah, think about that the next time you look at a person who is not rich or is doesn't have a home. We didn't have a home for 2 days. We got lucky. We found a new home that would take us in long enough for us to then also find employment and assistance, and we survived. We got super lucky, even though we were sort of down in our luck, as it were. And that's really all it takes. That's all it takes for someone to go from being living a comfortable, warm, happy life with friends and family to having a few bad strokes of luck and then ending up on the streets with nothing. And it can happen to you just as well as any other person. Yeah. I'm not saying don't feel bad about your circumstances and being successful. I'm just saying, perhaps, the next time you see someone on the street, don't think so poorly of them. If you're that kind of person. Hopefully not. But if you are, hopefully you take that message to heart and the world has become a slightly better place. That would make me happy. That would make me very happy. My schedule, I think I need to make a new schedule because I am no longer going to be playing Dune Awakening on stream. So there is a big giant sandworm named Dave on that card, and he probably needs to go back to Arrakis and retire from said card. I am going to be playing Space Marine 2 on the regular gaming streams for Friday and Sundays. And I'm kind of planning, although we'll really see when it comes to Old Man Endurance, kind of planning to sort of sneak in other games at random, extra streams, I guess. I won't put those on the schedule because I do not wish to commit to them, and I don't know when I will be motivated to do them. They may not even happen, really, if I think about it. But yeah, they may happen. So if you're interested in that, maybe keep an eye out for that. But certainly don't go out of your way to try and catch them all. That's what I used to do all the time. When Valan and I first found was a HoloLive EN about a month after their debut, we sort of started getting into VTubers and frankly streamers. Like I don't know, Valana, did you watch streamers before that? I don't think I really did. Like YouTube tutorials and stuff. Well, maybe I should do some of those. I've done a lot of setup for all the tech. You did? Well, look at you showing off. Anyways, I don't remember. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. It says a long time ago now. It really has been a long time ago now. Guru retired or graduated, if you wish. 5 years, right? That character was retired. That was 5 years ago that we started. No, yeah, it wasn't really my thing. My friend introduced me to, was it Nyaners? Nyaners? Yeah, Nyaners. She was doing a review of toilets. Just watching a video, to be fair, of someone with their toilet collection. And then, oh no, there was seal laughing. Was that it? 5 years ago, she did this thing where she was making a stupidly goofy sound. And she just repeated it over and over and over again. My friend showed the video to me. We just laughed at it, like mockingly. We weren't enjoying it. We're like, look how stupid this is. But but it's not. But I watched it a few times, and then we started watching Gigex review of like VTubers in general, and that it became very interesting to me. I mean, tell me if I told the story before, but don't stop me. When I was a young boy, like teenagers, preteens, before the internet was even a known thing or a known entity, well, to the general public. I think there was probably the universities and military were doing research on it, perhaps. But I had this thought. I had several thoughts. One, I enjoy games. I had just learned about games. I lived in a world where games was not an automatic thing that you could just assume was going to happen or was something that you would do. There was school, chores, and parents did work. And then sometimes you played in the yard, or you went outside and you beat up your friends for fun. Stuff, wholesome stuff. But we played some board games, and then I think mom or dad bought like a really old Atari with a controller that looked more like an old phone than the controllers we're accustomed to today. Not even a joystick. Just like a little disc paddle that you could turn and spin, and like a number pad and some side press buttons. That's it. And it had a foam cord connecting, so it was wired, but it was one of those springy, elasticy, pulley phone cords that the old phones on the side of your wall or whatever used to have in your home. If you ever had one, that thought occurs to me that many people today may never have had one of those. That's another thought. Anyhow, where was I? Yeah, I was a young boy, and games were I thought, wouldn't it be cool if someone paid me to play games? What a silly, ridiculous thought. Paid to play games. And then we have esports. not just paid to stream games or something, but you're paid a fortune to play games. It's a career now. It's a profession. That's all. There's a lesson in there somewhere. People will do what they want to do, and if they're having fun doing it, other people will find a way to make a buck off of it. The other one was, of course, I loved cartoons. We had Saturday morning cartoons, and if I wasn't too lazy, I got up. Well, lazy is the wrong word. We thought it was lazy. I suspect I had sleep apnea back then as well, because I slept as much as I could. and it was just exhausting, and it was really hard to get to sleep. So I think some people may diagnose as that as perhaps insomnia. I don't think I have insomnia now. I do have sleep apnea, and of course that could have developed later in life, so who really knows? It doesn't matter. But I had a lot of trouble sleeping, and that made me extremely tired in the morning. So when I was able to get up in time for Saturday morning cartoons, oh boy, that was like the highlight of the week. And we would watch those cartoons for as long as they played them. And I think the better ones were early in the morning, so we ended up watching, the less good ones. But there was also, when we were in Australia, there wasn't really Saturday morning cartoons in the same sense. It wasn't a fiesta of cartoons, if you will, but they did have some. And I remember this one art style that I absolutely hated back then. It was a real video footage of like a forest background or something. The setting was some real footage, and then they animated the characters in their cartoon, in their animation, and then they were voiced. Of course, there were no real life characters, but it was all. I think there's a name for the style. I hate the style even today. I feel like it's, well, I don't know, if you like it, you like it. Who cares? But I think back in the day, I thought that didn't mix well together. I think perhaps my little brain was like, you took some of my cartoon out of my cartoon. And then my old man brain today is like, are you lazy? Do you just not want to draw backgrounds? And like, it's like, well, if you don't want to draw backgrounds, then I'll just take IRL footage. Who cares? But it does, I think it kind of clashes a little bit, but it did let me think of like, wouldn't it be cool if you could be one of those characters, if you could be a cartoon in a fantastical story and just move however you wish to move and say whatever you wish to say. And then it would just all happen in real time. I didn't have words like dynamic, animation, whatever we might describe it as today. But that was such a fanciful dream, such an impossible thing to occur in the reality. The only possible thought in my brain was that someone would have to draw that real time, frame by frame. At least, the voiceover would be easy. I'd just say whatever I want to say into a microphone. We had microphones, and we had tape recorders. We had videotape. I suppose we had live broadcasts too, but that shit was expensive. No one's going to get me a live broadcaster. But that would be how that would have been done. There's no way back then for VTubers to have even have been a thought, never mind a dream, and certainly not a reality. And here we are today, about 1 billion years later. And all of this is not just possible, it's commonplace. That was before people couldn't even imagine cell phones. Well before that. Well, that's not true. Star Trek, the original Star Trek was playing, and they had their communicators. So cell phones had started. The dream for cell phones had started, I guess. The seed, the thought. Someone's prickling curiosity was fired up. Anyhow, that's old man story time over. Perhaps we should get on to old book story time. We are continuing Dracula. It seems like last time we read 3 chapters. They each took about an hour, so it's about 3 hours. It would be nice if that pattern continued. We could do like 3 chapters each night, and what was it? Was it like 20 something? It was 20 something chapters as well, right? We might get through all of October doing this. Let me see. Oh no, the wrong window. There's too many windows. I'm trying to make OBS do everything, but it doesn't have dark mode for browser sources. Let me see. Oh yeah, there are 27. There are 27 chapters. So, oh god, what's that, like 7 nights? No. 13 nights? Oh goodness. Old brain not work. Division sucks. 9 nights, so 8 more nights including tonight. So that's going to get us through all of October. So Dracula is going to be for October, and I guess we're still going to do the Sleepy Hollow after that, I think, and so that'll just take us into the after spooky month, in all likelihood. Yeah. Reading. I have my book this time, the proper book. As far as everyone's concerned, this was here last time. Just it was probably still on the shelf. Yeah. An acquired taste, the spray is. We got a lot of raids last couple of reading streams, which is really cool. We're a lot closer to the next follower goal, which makes me very happy. Thank you to everyone who followed, and especially the people before that who subscribed, largely friends who are very supportive. Always appreciate your supportive friends. Let's see what happened last time. Jonathan, despite being warned by complete strangers who he would honestly have no reason to listen to or follow, instead traveled to the Count Dracula's castle, and ignoring the incredibly strange events along the way, and the delays, and the warnings, and the strangeness of the situation, was taken to the castle from the village that he was told to visit. At that point, it probably was too late for him to do anything. He was eventually discovered trapped in Count Dracula's castle, warned to stay within a single room, every other door locked and barred from his entry. After a night or two of long, boring days and late nights of conversation with the Count, who had very peculiar waking hours, he decided to push out a little deeper into the castle and see perhaps if there was an open door somewhere during his absence. The Count left quite frequently. Much business, he would claim. Eventually, he found a door, upper or lower. He found some stairs. He managed to get into some stairs. Went to I think it was a lower level. He found that the rest of the castle seemed much quieter. There were no servants. Dracula did all the things out of eyesight of Jonathan to make it look like to Jonathan that he was indeed rich, well-to-do, and had a fully staffed castle, which became apparent he did not. Yet the trappings of his room, Jonathan's room that is, were quite rich. He found another room with furniture covered in dust, what amounted to, he believed, would have been in the past a ladies' room for doing their makeup or chit-chatting and having a good time, something like that. And he fell asleep in that room, again in spite of Dracula's warning to not fall asleep anywhere but his own room. He woke up, though he remained still, to the presence of three women who were, eyeing him up as a meal. He was nearly chowed down upon when Dracula saved him, but at that point, the conversation kind of really alluded to, he was eventually going to be fed to the girls. At the end of that scene, and I believe it was the end of the third chapter, Dracula fed what is most likely a young child to the three women and took Jonathan back upstairs, I believe. He may not have gotten that far. Anyways, oh, that's right, I believe Jonathan passed out. Fully now aware of his predicament and the danger he is in. Right. With that, we will start. Where's my chapter marker? Chapter 4. I awoke in my own bed. If it had been that I had not dreamt, the Count must have carried me here. I tried to satisfy myself on the subject, but could not arrive at any unquestionable result. To be sure, there were certain small evidences, such as that my clothes were folded and laid by in a manner which was not my habit. My watch was still unwound, and I am rigorously accustomed to wind it the last thing before going to bed. and many such details. But these things are no proof, for they may have been evidences that my mind was not as usual, and, from some cause or another, I had certainly been much upset. I must watch for proof. Of one thing I am glad. If it was that the Count carried me here and undressed me, he must have been hurried in his task, for my pockets are intact. I am sure this diary would have been a mystery to him which he would not have brooked. He would have taken or destroyed it. As I look round this room, although it has been to me so full of fear, it is now a sort of sanctuary, for nothing can be more dreadful than those awful women who were or are waiting to suck my blood. 18 May. I have been down to look at that room again in daylight, for I must know the truth. When I got to the doorway at the top of the stairs, I found it closed. It had been so forcibly driven against the jamb that part of the woodwork was splintered. I could see that the bolt, how the lock had not been shot, but the door is fastened from the inside. I fear it was no dream, and must act on this surmise. 19 May. I am surely in the toils. Last night the Count asked me, in the suavest of tones, to write 3 letters. One saying that my work here was nearly done, and that I should start for home within a few days. Another, that I was starting on the next morning from the time of the letter. And the third, that I had left the castle and arrived at Bistritz. I would fain have rebelled, but felt that in the present state of things it would be madness to quarrel openly with the Count whilst I am so absolutely in his power, and to refuse would be to excite his suspicion and to arouse his anger. He knows that I know too much, and that I must not live, lest I be dangerous to him. My only chance is to prolong my opportunities. Something may occur which will give me a chance to escape. I saw in his eyes something of that gathering wrath which was manifest when he hurled that fair woman from him. He explained to me that the posts were few and uncertain, and that my writing now would ensure ease of mind to my friends. And he assured me with so much impressiveness that he would countermand the later letters, which would be held over at Bistritz until due time, in case chance would admit of my prolonging my stay. That to oppose him would have been to create new suspicion. I therefore pretended to fall in with his views, and asked him what dates I should put on the letters. He calculated a minute, and then said, "The first should be June 12th, the second, June 19th, and the third, June 29. I know now the span of my life. God help me." 28 May. There is a chance of escape, or at any rate of being able to send word home. A band of, Shikani have come to the castle and are encamped in the courtyard. These Shikani are gypsies. Maybe that's... I apologize to anyone who is from any of these regions and is having to cringe every time I attempt to pronounce one of these words that I am completely foreign to. I have notes of them in my book. They are peculiar to this part of the world, though allied to the ordinary gypsies all the world over. There are thousands of them in Hungary and Transylvania, who are almost outside the law. They attach themselves as a rule to some great noble or boyar and call themselves by his name. They are fearless and without religion, save superstition, and they walk only their own varieties of the They talk only their own varieties of the Romani tongue. I shall write some letters home, and I shall try to get them to have them posted. I have already spoken them through my window to begin acquaintanceship. They took their hats off and made obeisance and many signs, which, however, I could not understand any more than I could their spoken language. Yeah, they must like him. I have written the letters. Mina's is in shorthand, and I simply ask Mr. Hawkins to communicate with her. To her I have explained my situation, but without the horrors which I may only surmise. I would shock and frighten her to death were I to expose my heart to her. Should the letters not carry, then the Count shall not yet know my secret or the extent of my knowledge. I have given the letters. I threw them through the bars of my window with a gold piece, and made what signs I could to have them posted. The man who took them pressed them to his shirt and bowed, and then put them in his cap. I could do no more. I stole back to the study and began to read. As the Count did not come in, I have written here. He did not come in this time, apparently. The Count has come. That's confusing. He sat down beside me and said in his smoothest voice as he opened 2 letters, The Sagani has given me these, of which, though I know not whence they come, I shall, of course, take care. See? He must have looked at it. One is from you, and to my friend Peter Hawkins, the other. Here, he caught sight of the strange symbols as he opened the envelope, and the dark look came into his face, and his eyes blazed wickedly. The other is a vile thing, an outrage upon friendship and hospitality. It is not signed. Well, so it cannot matter to us. And he calmly held the letter and envelope in the flame of the lamp till they were consumed. Then he went on. The letter to Hawkins that I shall, of course, send on, since it is yours. Your letters are sacred to me. Your pardon, my friend, that unknowingly I did break the seal. Will you not cover it again? He held out the letter to me, and with a courteous bow handed me a clean envelope. I could only redirect it and hand it to him in silence. When he went out of the room, I could hear the key turn softly. A minute later, I went over and tried it, and the door was locked. When an hour or 2 after, the Count came quietly into the room. His coming awakened me, for I had gone to sleep on the sofa. He was very courteous and very cheery in his manner, and seeing that I had been sleeping, he said, So, my friend, you are tired? Get to bed. There is the surest rest. I may not have the pleasure to talk tonight, since there are many labors to me, but you will sleep, I pray. I passed to my room and went to bed, and, strange to say, slept without dreaming. Despair has its own calms. 31 May. This morning when I woke, I thought I would provide myself with some paper and envelopes from my bag and keep them in my pocket, so that I might write in case I should get an opportunity. But again a surprise, again a shock. Every scrap of paper was gone, and with it all my notes, my memoranda, relating to railways and travel, my letter of credit, in fact all that might be useful to me were I once outside the castle. I sat and pondered a while, and then some thought occurred to me, and I made search of my portmanteau. We had this word last time. My portmanteau. It's oh dear. You gave me this word last time, Valana. It's a manatee in a port, yes. And in the wardrobe, it's a bag, right? Yeah, portmanteau. Yeah. In search of my portmanteau, his bag, it's a leather bag. It's a handy haversack if you play D&D. And in the wardrobe, where I had placed my clothes, the suit in which I had traveled was gone, and also my overcoat and rug. I could find no trace of them anywhere. This looked like some new scheme of villainy. He's out of paper. How is he making more notes? 17 June. This morning, as I was sitting on the edge of my bed, cudgeling my brains, I heard without a cracking of whips and pounding of and scraping of horses' feet, up the rocky path beyond the courtyard. With joy, I hurried to the window and saw drive into the yard 2 great litre wagons, each drawn by 8 sturdy horses. And at the head of each pair, a Slovak with his wide hat, great nail-studded belt, dirty sheepskin, and high boots. They had also their long staves in hand. I ran to the door, intending to descend and try to join them through the main hall, as I thought that way might be open for them. Again a shock. My door was fastened on the outside. He still has the diary that was in his pocket. Oh, okay. How's he writing in it? I mean, I guess he's... Why would Dracula give him writing implements? I thought he was plundered. Oh well. Maybe he draws in blood. That'll never get noticed. Then I ran to the window and cried to them. They looked up at me stupidly and pointed. But just then the hetman of the Sagani came out and, seeing them pointing to my window, said something, at which they laughed. Henceforth no effort of mine, no piteous cry or agonized entreaty would make them even look at me. They resolutely turned away. The litre wagons contained great, square boxes with handles of thick rope. These removed. These were evidently empty by the ease with which the Slovaks handled them, and by their resonance as they were roughly moved. When they were all unloaded and packed in a great heap in one corner of the yard, the Slovaks were given some money by the Sagani, and spitting on it for luck, lazily went to each other's horse's head. Shortly afterwards, I heard the cracking of their whips die away in the distance. 24 June. Before morning. Last night, the Count left me early and locked himself into his own room. As soon as I dared, I ran up the winding stair, and looking out of the window which opened south, I thought I would watch for the Count, for there is something going on. The Sagani are quartered somewhere in the castle and are doing work of some kind. I know it, for now and then I hear a faraway muffled sound as of matlock and spade, and whatever it is, it must be the end of some ruthless villainy. There is much villainy to be had. I had been at the window somewhat less than half an hour when I saw something coming out of the Count's window. I don't know why I keep saying that court. He's a court now. He plays tennis. Coming out of the Count's window. I drew back and watched carefully and saw the whole man emerge. It was a new shock to me to find that he had on the suit of clothes which I had worn whilst traveling here. Oh, that's tacky. And slung over his shoulder the terrible bag which I had seen the woman take away. There could be no doubt as to his quest, and in my garb too. This, then, is his new scheme of evil, that he will allow others to see me as they think, so that he may both leave evidence that I have been seen in the towns or villages posting my own letters, and that any wickedness which he may do shall by the local people be attributed to me. Attributed. It makes me rage to think that this can go on, and whilst I am shut up here, a veritable prisoner, but without that protection of the law which is even a criminal's right and consolation. Yeah, criminals have rights. I thought I would watch for the Count's return, and for a long time sat doggedly at the window. Then I began to notice that there were some quaint little specks floating in the rays of the moonlight. They were like the tiniest grains of dust, and they whirled around and gathered in clusters in a nebulous sort of way. I watched them with a sense of soothing, and a sort of calm stole over me. I leaned back in the embrasure of a more comfortable position so that I could enjoy more fully the aerial gamboling. It's gamboling, not gambling, just for the record. I don't know what gamboling is. I'm gonna guess I would have used the word cavorting. It's just a me thing. Something made me start up. A low, piteous howling of dogs somewhere far below in the valley, which was hidden from my sight. A louder it seemed to ring in my ears, and the floating motes of dust to take new shapes to the sound as they danced in the moonlight. I felt myself struggling to awake to some call of my instincts. Nay, my very soul was struggling, and my half-remembered sensibilities were striving to answer the call. I was becoming hypnotized. Quicker and quicker danced the dust. The moonbeams seemed to quiver as they went by me into the mass of gloom beyond. More and more they gathered till they seemed to take dim phantom shapes. And then I started, broad awake and in full possession of my senses, and ran screaming from the place. The phantom shapes, which were becoming gradually materialized from the moonbeams, were those of the 3 ghostly women to whom I was doomed. I fled, and felt somewhat safer in my own room, where there was no moonlight, and where the lamp was burning brightly. When a couple of hours had passed, I heard something stirring in the Count's room. Something like a sharp wail, quickly suppressed, and then there was silence. Deep, awful silence, which chilled me. The beating heart. I tried the door, but I was locked in my prison, and could do nothing. I sat down and simply cried. As I sat, I heard a sound in the courtyard without, the agonized cry of a woman. I rushed to the window, and throwing it up, peered out between the bars. There indeed was a woman with disheveled hair, holding her hands over her heart as one distressed with running. She was leaning against the corner of the gateway. When she saw my face in the window, she threw herself forward and shouted in a voice laden with menace, "Monster, give me my child." She threw herself on her knees, and raising up her hands, cried the same words in tones which wrung my heart. Then she tore her hair and beat her breast, and abandoned herself to all the violences of extravagant emotion. Finally she threw herself forward, and though I could not see her, I could hear the beating of her naked hands against the door. Somewhere high overhead, probably on the tower, I heard the voice of the Count calling in his harsh, metallic whisper. His calls seemed to be answered from far and wide by the howling of wolves. Before many minutes had passed, a pack of them poured like a pent-up dam when liberated through the wide entrance into the courtyard. There was no cry from the woman, as the howling of the wolves was but short. Before long they streamed away singly, licking their lips. I could not pity her, for I knew now what had become of her child, and she was better dead. What shall I do? What can I do? How can I escape from this dreadful thing of night and gloom and fear? 25 June, morning. No man knows till he has suffered from the night how sweet and dear to his heart and I, the morning can be. When the sun grew so high this morning that it struck the top of the great gateway opposite my window, the high spot which it touched seemed to me as if the dove from the ark had lighted there. My fear fell from me as it had been a vaporous My fear fell from me as if it had been a vaporous garment which dissolved in the warmth. I must take action of some sort whilst the courage of the day is upon me. Last night one of my post-dated letters went to post, the first of that fatal series which is to blot out the very traces of my existence from the earth. Let me not think of it. Action. It has always been at night time that I have been molested or threatened, or in some way in danger or in fear. I have not seen the Count in the daylight. Can it be that he sleeps when others wake, that he may be awake whilst they sleep? If I could only get into his room, but there is no possible way. The door is always locked, no way for me. Yes, there is a way, if one dares to take it. Where his body has gone, why may not another body go? I have seen him myself crawl from his window. Why should I not imitate? Why should not I imitate him and go in by his window? The chances are desperate, but my need is more desperate still. I shall risk it. At the worst, it can only be death, and a man's death is not a calf's, and the dreaded hereafter may still be open to me. God help me in my task. Goodbye, Mina. If I fail, goodbye. My faithful friend and second father, goodbye. All and last of all, Mina. Same day, but later on. Cat fact, how appropriate. I guess. Cats are now Britain's favorite pet. There are 7.7 million cats as opposed to 6.6 million dogs. Well, it was inevitable. Alright, same day later on. I have made the effort, and God help me, have come safely back to this room. I must put down every detail in order. I went whilst my courage was fresh straight to the window on the south side, and at once got outside the narrow ledge of stone which runs around the building on this side. The stones are big and roughly cut, and the mortar has by process of time been washed away between them. I took off my boots and ventured out on the desperate way. I looked down once, so as to make sure that a sudden glimpse of the awful depth would not overcome me, but after that kept my eyes away from it. Excuse me. I knew pretty well the direction and distance of the Count's window and made for it as well as I could, having regard to the opportunities available. I did not feel dizzy, and I tried to raise up the sash. I was filled with agitation, however, when I bent down and slid feet foremost in through the window. Then I looked around for the Count, but with surprise and gladness made a discovery. The room was empty. It was barely furnished with odd things, which seemed to have never been used. The furniture was something the same style as that in the south rooms, and was covered with dust. I looked for the key, but it was not in the lock, and I could not find it anywhere. The only thing I found was a great heap of gold in one corner. Gold of all kinds, Roman and British and Austrian and Hungarian and Greek and Turkish money covered with a film of dust, as though it had lain long on the ground. None of it, that I noticed, was less than 300 years old. There were also chains and ornaments, some jeweled, but all of them old and stained. It's the treasure room, I guess. At one corner of the room was a heavy door. I tried it, for since I could not find the key of the room or the key of the outer door, which was the main object of my search, I must make further examination, or all my efforts would be in vain. It was open, and led through a stone passage to a circular stairway, which went steeply down. I descended, minding carefully where I went, for the stairs were dark, being only lit by loopholes in the heavy masonry. At the bottom there was a dark tunnel-like passage, through which came a deathly, sickly odor, the odor of old earth newly turned. As I was through the passage, the smell grew closer and heavier. At last I pulled open a heavy door, which stood ajar, and found myself in an old, ruined chapel, which had evidently been used as a graveyard. The roof was broken, and in two places were steps leading to vaults. But the ground had been recently dug over, and the earth placed in great wooden boxes, manifestly those which had been brought by the Slovaks. There was nobody about, and I made search for any further outlet, but there was none. Then I went over every inch of the ground so as not to lose a chance. I went down even into the vaults, where the dim light struggled, although to do so was a dread to my very soul. Into two of those I went, but I saw nothing except fragments of old coffins and piles of dust in the third. However, I made a discovery. Yes, so you have said. Now I'm going to have a sip of water. Then I'm going to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Yes. Stop beeping at me. There we go. Right. Okay, a discovery was made. Let's see. There, in one of the great boxes, of which there were 50 in all, on a pile of newly dug earth, lay the Count. He was neither dead or asleep, but I could not. So he was either dead or asleep. He was in one of the great boxes, right? I could not say which, for the eyes were open and stony, but without the glassiness of death, and the cheeks had the warmth of life through all their pallor. The lips were as red as ever, but there was no sign of movement, no pulse, no breath, no beating of heart. So he checked? I bent over him and tried to find any sign of life, but in vain. He could not have lain there long, for the earthy smell would have passed away in a few hours. By the side of the box... Yes, he checked. Yeah, brave fellow. So, but here's the thing. I think we're like... Dracula doesn't... Well, no, he had a very cold handshake, but he looks warm here? Maybe it's just like, he checked by the pallor of his cheek. So I guess so he doesn't look pale. His cheeks had the warmth of life through all their pallor. Yeah, I guess fear of death will give you a lot of courage. Yeah, if you're cornered, right? Where on earth was I? Bent over him and tried to find any sign of life, but in vain. He could not have lain there long, for the earthy smell would have passed away in a few hours. By the side of the box was its cover, pierced with holes here and there. I thought he might have the keys on him, but when I went to search, I saw the dead eyes, and in them, dead though they were, such a look of hate. Though unconscious of me or my presence, that I fled from the place, and leaving the Count's room by the window, crawled again up the castle wall. Regaining my room, I threw myself panting upon the bed and tried to think. 29 June. Today is the date of my last letter, and the Count has taken steps to prove that it was genuine, for again I saw him leave the castle by the same window and in my clothes. As he went down the wall, lizard fashion, I wished I had a gun or some lethal weapon that I might destroy him. But I fear that no weapon wrought alone by man's hand would have any effect on him. I dared not wait to see him return, for I feared to see those weird sisters. I came back to the library and read there till I fell asleep. I was awakened by the Count, who looked at me as grimly as a man can look, and as he said, "Tomorrow, my friend, we must part. You return to your beautiful England, I to some work which I may have but I to some work which may have such an end that we may never meet. Your letter home has been dispatched. Tomorrow I shall not be here, but all shall be ready for your journey. In the morning come the Sagani, who have some labors of their own here, but also come some Slovaks. When they have gone, my carriage shall come for you, and shall bear you to the Borgor Pass to meet the diligence from Bukovina to Bistritz." The diligence, eh? "But I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula." I suspected him, and determined to test his sincerity. Sincerity. It seems like a profanation of oh dear, of the word to write it in connection with such a monster. So I asked him point blank, "Why may I not go tonight?" "Because, dear sir, my coachman and horses are away on a mission." "But I would walk with pleasure. I want to get away at once." He smiled, such a soft, smooth, diabolical smile that I knew there was some trick behind his smoothness. He said, "And your baggage?" "I do not care about it. I can send for it for some other time." The Count stood up and said, with a sweet, courtesy which made me rub my eyes. It seemed so real. You English have a saying which is close to my heart, for its spirit is that which rules our boyars. Welcome the coming, speed the parting guest. Come with me, my dear young friend. Not an hour shall you wait in my house against your will, though sad am I at your going, and that you so suddenly desire it. Come. With a stately gravity, he, with the lamp, preceded me down the stairs and along the hall. Suddenly he stopped. Hark! Someone said hark. I think it was him. Close at hand came the howling of many wolves. It was almost as if the sound sprang up at the rising of his hand, just as the music of a great orchestra seemed to leap under the baton of the conductor. After a pause of a moment, he proceeded, in his stately way, to the door, drew back the ponderous bolts, unhooked the heavy chains, and began to draw it open. To my intense astonishment, I saw that it was unlocked. Suspiciously, I looked all around, but could see no key of any kind. As the door began to open, the howling of the wolves grew louder and angrier. Their red jaws with champing teeth and their blunt-clawed feet as they leapt came in through the opening door. I knew then that to struggle at that moment against the Count was useless. With such allies as these at his command, I could do nothing. But still the door continued slowly to open, and only the Count's body stood in the gap. Suddenly it struck me that this might be the moment and means of my doom. I was to be given to the wolves, and at my own instigation. There was a diabolical wickedness in the idea great enough for the Count, and as a last chance I cried out, "Shut the door. I shall wait till morning," and covered my face with my hands to hide my tears of bitter disappointment. With one sweep of his powerful arm, the Count threw the door shut, and the great bolts clanged and echoed through the hall as they shot back into their places. In silence we returned to the library, and after a minute or two I went to my own room. The last I saw of Count Dracula was his kissing his hand to me, with a red light of triumph in his eyes, and with a smile that Judas in hell might be proud of. When I was in my room and about to lie down, I thought I had heard a whispering at my door. I went to it softly and listened, and as my ears deceived me, I heard the voice of the Count. "Back, back, to your own place. Your time is not yet come. Wait, have patience. Tonight is mine. Tomorrow night is yours." There was a low, sweet ripple of laughter, and in a rage I threw open the door and saw without the three terrible women licking their lips. As I appeared, they all joined in a horrible laugh and ran away. I came back to my room and threw myself on my knees. It is then so near the end. Tomorrow, Lord help me, and those to whom I am dear. June 30, morning. What's that? He also eat that woman's child? I mean, the woman from a long time ago? When did you say that? Like 6:46? How long ago was? That's like a minute. Yeah. So when you said that a long time ago, yeah, I think that was a pretty obvious implication, I believe. 30 June, morning. These may be the last words I ever write in this diary. I slept till just before the dawn, and when I woke threw myself on my knees, for I determined that if death came, he should find me ready. At last I felt the subtle change in the air and knew that the morning had come. Then came the welcome cock-crow, and I felt that I was safe. With a glad heart I opened my door and ran down to the hall. I had seen that the door was unlocked, and now escape was before me. With hands that trembled with eagerness, I unhooked the chains and drew back the massive bolts, but the door would not move. Despair seized me. I pulled and pulled at the door and shook it till, massive as it was, it rattled in its casement. I could see the bolt shot. It had been locked after I left the count. Ooh, we have an ad coming in soon. We are going to pause there. I'm going to highlight this little paragraph. Here we go, and we can see the countdown timer. That makes me excited. It gives me something to look at while I sit here saying nothing. Twitch still believes that I have an unstable connection, but I have not dropped a single frame. I think anything over 6 megabits per second it considers a thing. So the timer expired, but I don't see the ads. What happened to that? This is not how it is supposed to go. Lana, you didn't pause or anything, did you? Yeah, that's annoying. That's very annoying. It was working last time. Nothing has changed. Let's take a look at StreamerBot. Can't tell me that like Twitch has decided suddenly not to run ads. That's not StreamerBot. That is Obsidian. Here's StreamerBot. Actions and queues, action history, ads soon, warning announcement. Oh, there we go. Color me curious. Their notifications must be messed up. It's all based on timers. Oh, we're gonna take a little break, and we will be back hopefully when the ads are done, like for real. We are back. Now I'm just looking at the code here, and I did make some changes because I wanted to put in the bars, right? But the trigger is upcoming ads from Twitch. This is a pre-programmed trigger. It's set for 1 minute. And 1 minute, unless life has changed dramatically, is equal to 60,000 milliseconds. Right? Not crazy, right? And then 60 seconds to yeah, 60,000 milliseconds. Of course it is. Obviously it is. So I have a math equation in here, and it's like multiply the minutes by 60,000, and that is a value I set as ad duration milliseconds, and that's what I use for timers to time the impending ad notification. Progress. Will progress bar, and then that is. Oh, hey, do I have those backwards? I want the raw command sets the bar progress duration. Right? And that is set by this little code here, which sets it by the duration called add duration milliseconds. Right, with a capital D and a capital M. Okay, that is supposed to be a thing. Now we can go over to excuse me while I just interrupt the reading of the book to investigate the things and the stuff that I wish to investigate. Things and stuff. Filters, add timer progress, or incoming gold bar progress. Yeah, that was set to 60,000 milliseconds. So that thing lasted for a minute, and then Twitch failed, which is I mean, I'm making an assumption, I suppose. There may be other conclusions to be drawn here, but this seems to be what's happened. Twitch didn't adhere to a minute for some reason. It sent the trigger, hey, ads coming in a minute, and then waited longer than a minute, which it's been pretty reliable for that particular API call in the last X number of streams we've done with this setup. So that's a little disappointing, but What are you going to do? We shall continue, I think, with our book. With our booksies. Please forgive the distraction, which I'll likely not cut out from anything. The bolt was shot. It had been locked after he left the Count. Then a wild desire took me to obtain that key at any risk, and I determined then and there to scale the wall again and gain the Count's room. He might kill me, but death now seemed the happier choice of evils. Without a pause, I rushed up to the east window and scrambled down the wall as before into the Count's room. It was empty, but that was as I expected. I could not see a key anywhere, but the heap of gold remained. I went through the door in the corner and down the winding stair and along the dark passage to the old chapel. I knew now well enough where to find the monster I sought. The great box was in the same place, close against the wall, but the lid was laid on it, not fastened down, but with the nails ready in their places to be hammered home. I knew I must reach the body for the key, so I raised the lid and laid it back against the wall. And then I saw something which filled my very soul with horror. There lay the Count, but looking as if his youth had been half renewed, for the white hair and mustache were changed to dark iron gray, the cheeks were fuller, and the white skin seemed ruby red underneath. The mouth was redder than ever, for on the lips were gouts of fresh blood, which trickled from the corners of the mouth and ran over the chin and neck. Even the deep, burning eyes seemed set amongst swollen flesh, for the lids and pouches underneath were bloated. It seemed as if the whole awful creature were simply gorged with blood. He lay like a filthy leech, exhausted with his repletion. I shuddered as I bent over to touch him, and every sense of me revolted at the contact, but I had to search or I was lost. The coming night might see my own body a banquet in a similar way to those horrid three. I felt all over the body, but no sign could I find of the key. Then I stopped and looked at the Count. There was a mocking smile on the bloated face which seemed to drive me mad. This was the being I was helping to transfer to London, where perhaps for centuries to come he might, amongst its teeming millions, satiate his lust for blood and create a new and ever-widening circle of semi-demons to batten on the helpless. The very thought drove me mad. A terrible desire came upon me to rid the world of such a monster. There was no lethal weapon at hand, but I seized a shovel which the workmen had been using to fill the cases, and, lifting it high, struck, with the edge downward at the hateful face. But as I did so, the head turned, and the eyes fell full upon me, with all their blaze of basilisk horror. The sight seemed to paralyze me, and the shovel turned to my hand and glanced from the face, merely making a deep gash above the forehead. The shovel fell from my hand across the box, and as I pulled away, the flange of the blade caught the edge of the lid, which fell over again, and hid the horrid thing from my sight. The last glimpse I had of the bloated face, blood-stained and fixed with a grin of malice which would have held its own in the nethermost hell. I thought and thought what should be my next move, but my brain seemed on fire, and I waited with a despairing feeling growing over me. As I waited, I heard in the distance a gypsy song sung by merry voices coming closer, and through their song the rolling of heavy wheels and the cracking of whips. The Sagani and the Slovaks, of whom the Count had spoken, were coming. With a last look around and at the box which contained the vile body, I ran from the place and gained the Count's room, determined to rush out at the moment the door should be opened. With straining ears I listened, and heard downstairs the grinding of the key in the great lock and the falling back of the heavy door. There must have been some other means of entry, or someone had a key for one of the locked doors. Then there came the sound of many feet tramping and dying away in some passage which had sent up a clinking echo. I turned to run down again towards the vault, where I might find the new entrance, but at that moment there seemed to come a violent puff of wind, and the door to the winding stair blew to with a shock that sent the dust from the lintels flying. When I ran to push it open, I found that it was hopelessly fast. I was again a prisoner, and the net of doom was closing around me more closely. As I write, there is in the passage below a sound of many tramping feet and the crash of weights being set down heavily, doubtless the boxes with their freight of earth. There is a sound of hammering. It is the box being nailed down. Now I can hear the heavy feet tramping again along the hall, with many other idle feet coming behind them. The door is shut, and the chains rattle. There is a grinding of the key in the lock. I can hear the key withdraw. Then another door opens and shuts. I hear the creaking of lock and bolt. Hark! In the courtyard and down the rocky way, the roll of heavy wheels, the crack of whips, and the chorus of the Sagani as they pass into the distance. I am alone in the castle with those awful women. Pfft! Mina is a woman, and there is naught in common. They are devils of the pit. I shall not remain alone with them. I shall try to scale the castle wall further than I have yet attempted. I shall take some of the gold with me, lest I want it later. I may find a way from this dreadful place. And then away for home, away to the quickest and nearest train, away from this cursed spot, away from this cursed land, where the devil and his children still walk with earthly feet. At least God's mercy is better than that of these monsters, and the precipice is steep and high. At his foot a man may sleep as a man. Goodbye, all. Mina. Thus ends chapter 4. Yeah. Dracula may have been lying. Yeah, I think you're right, Valena. I think Twitch probably failed or was delayed or something. I added a lot of things to that action, but it's fundamentally the same. The timing is the same. But a wealth person would never lie. A wealthy person would never lie. Yeah, that's right. Well, he left the gold behind, which is kind of mysterious, right? I mean, like, why would he just leave it there? I mean, obviously it's hundreds of years old. I suppose he may have forgotten it or has found other means of transferring or acquiring wealth, you know. Maybe he sells meat at the butcher. Just extra pocket money. It's his coin collection. But again, why would you leave that behind? XC. Like the stuff you find in the couch cushions. Yeah, he could use some better couches though. Alright, we move on. Chapter 5. My dearest Lucy, forgive my long delay in writing, but I have been simply overwhelmed with work. The life of an assistant schoolmistress is sometimes trying. I am longing to be with you and by the sea, and I am trying to avoid hiccuping a lot, because that's what water does. And my nose is just kind of really annoying me. I need fewer hairs. I am longing to be with you and by the sea, where we can talk together freely and build our castles in the air. I have been working very hard lately, because I want to keep up with Jonathan's studies, and I have been practicing shorthand very assiduously. When we are married, I shall be able to be useful to Jonathan, and if I can, stenograph well enough I can take down what he wants to say in this way and write it out for him on the typewriter, at which also I am practicing very hard. He and I sometimes write letters in shorthand, and he is keeping a stenographic journal of his travels abroad. When I am with you, I shall keep a diary in the same way. I don't mean one of those 2 pages to the week with Sunday squeezed in the corner diaries, but a sort of journal which I can write in whenever I feel inclined. I do not suppose there will be much of interest to other people, but it is not intended for them. I may show it to Jonathan some day if there is in it anything worth sharing, but it is really an exercise book. I shall try to do what I see lady journalists do, interviewing and writing descriptions and trying to remember conversations. I am told that with a little practice one can remember all that goes on or that one hears said during a day. However, we shall see. I know I couldn't do that. I barely remember a conversation I had 10 seconds ago. You can ask Valana. I will tell you of my little plans when we meet. I have just had a few hurried lines from Jonathan from Transylvania. He is well, and will be returning in about a week. I'm longing to hear all his news. Yeah, you don't know the half of it, dear. It must be so nice to see strange countries. I wonder if Jonathan and I, shall ever see them together. There is the 10 o'clock bell ringing. Goodbye. Your loving Mina. Tell me all the news when you write. You have not told me anything for a long time. I hear rumors, and especially of a tall, handsome, curly-haired man. Letter Lucy Westernra to Mina Murray. To Mina Murray, 17 Catham Street, Wednesday. The indenting here is very strange. My dearest Mina, I must say you tax me very unfairly with being a bad correspondent. I wrote to you twice since we parted, and your last letter was only your second? That would be twice, okay. Besides, I have nothing to tell you. There is really nothing to interest you. Town is very pleasant just now, and we go a good deal to picture galleries and for walks and rides in the park. As to the tall, curly-haired man, I suppose it was the one who was with me at the last pop. Someone has evidently been telling tales. That was Mr. Holmwood. He often comes to see us, and he and Mamma get on very well together. They have so many things to talk about in common. We met some time ago a man that would just do for you, if you were not already engaged to Jonathan. He is an excellent parti, being handsome, well off, and of good birth. He is a doctor and really clever. Just fancy. He is only 9 and 20, and so he's 29. Okay, 9 and 20, and he has an immense lunatic asylum, all his own care. You imagine what a catch, I guess. Mr. Holmwood introduced me to him, and he called here to see us, and often comes now. I think he is one of the most resolute men I ever saw, and yet the most calm. He seems absolutely imperturbable. I can fancy what a wonderful power he must have over his patients. He has a curious habit of looking one straight in the face, as if trying to read one's thoughts. He tries this on very much with me, but I flatter myself he has got a tough nut to crack. I know that from my glass. Do you ever try to read your own face? I see. I do, and I can tell you it is not a bad study, and gives you more trouble than you can well fancy if you have never tried it. He says that I afford him a curious psychological study, and I humbly think I do. I do not, as you know, take sufficient interest in dress to be able to describe the new fashions. Dress is a bore. That is a slang again, but never mind. Arthur says that every day it is all out, Mina. Sorry. Arthur says that every day. There, it is all out. Mina, We have told all our secrets to each other since we were children, and have slept together, and eaten together, and laughed and cried together. And now, though I have spoken, I would like to speak more. Oh Mina, couldn't you guess? I love him. I am blushing as I write, for although I think he loves me, he has not told me so in words. But oh Mina, I love him. I love him, I love him. There, that does me good. I wish I were with you, dear, sitting by the fire, undressing, as we used to sit, and I would try to tell you what I feel. I do not know how I am writing this even to you. I am afraid to stop, or I should tear up the letter, and I don't want to stop, for I do so want to tell you all. Let me hear from you at once, and tell me all that you think about it. Mina, I must stop. Good night. Bless me in your prayers, and Mina, pray for my happiness. Lucy. Was this necessary for the book? Like, it feels a little... All right. P.S. I need not tell you this is a secret. Good night again. L. Letter. Lucy, West Hernra, to Mina Mary, 24 May. Yeah, okay. I hope Lucy becomes an important character here. My dearest Mina, thanks, and thanks, and thanks again for your sweet letter. It was so nice to be able to tell you and to have your sympathy. It's building up the women. I mean, sure, I'm all for characters being built up, but I'm really worried about Jonathan. So, someone tell me about Jonathan. Is he okay? Did he make it out? Is it a tragedy or is it triumph? Anyways, my dear, it never rains, but it pours. How true. Yeah, no, you have to wait for that. Okay, so thank you, Valana. It's, I guess, no spoilers, I suppose. How true the old proverbs are. Here I am, who shall be 20 in September, and yet I never had a proposal till today, not a real proposal, and today I have had 3. Just fancy, 3 proposals in one day. Isn't it awful? I feel sorry, really and truly sorry, for 2 of the poor fellows. Oh, Mina, I am so happy that I don't know what to do with myself. And 3 proposals, but for goodness sake, don't tell any of the girls, or they will be... God, this is a big wall of text. I keep missing my place. Don't tell any of the girls, or they would be getting all sorts of extravagant ideas and imagining themselves injured and slighted if in their very first day at home they did not get 6 at least. Some girls are so vain. You and I, Mina dear, who are engaged and are going to settle down soon soberly into old married women, can despise vanity. Well, I must tell you about the 3, but you must keep it a secret. This girl writes all her secrets down on paper. She's like a hacker's, like Dear Dream or something. Sorry, the first joke that came into my head was probably inappropriate. But you must keep it a secret, dear, for everyone, except of course Jonathan. You will tell him, because I would. If I were in your place, certainly tell Arthur. A woman ought to tell her husband everything. Don't you think so, dear? And I must be fair. Men, like women, certainly their wives, to be quite as fair as they are. And women, I am afraid, are not always quite as fair as they should be. Well, my dear, number one came just before lunch. I just want to say that it is okay to not tell your husband or your wife every single secret. If you did, and now there is a lot of sharing that Valana and I do, but there are boundaries, and that is okay, and it's important sometimes. I told you of him, Dr. John Seward, not Stewart, there's no T, the lunatic asylum man, with the strong jaw and the good forehead. He was very cool outwardly, but was nervous all the same. He had evidently been schooling himself as to all sorts of little things, and remembered them. Content. I have to drink now. Right, thank you for the redeem, friend. Here, you hear? That's my metal straw upon my glass mug, right? It's a laser-etched glass. I had the Nerve logo customized into its side. I really like this glass. They don't do them anymore, at least not up here. Ooh. Oh, yeah, thank you for the drink. Now I'll read and try to, pseudo-hiccup. Where were we in our silly little girl letter? That's probably meaner than it needed to be. I see. He was nervous all the same. He had been evidently schooling himself as to all sorts of little things and remembered them. But he almost managed to sit down on his silk hat, which men don't generally do when they are cool. And then, when he wanted to appear at ease, he kept playing with a lancet in a way that made me nearly scream. He spoke to me, Mina, very straightforwardly. He told me how dear I was to him, though he had known me so little, and what his life would be with me to help and cheer him. He was going to tell me how unhappy he would be if I did not care for him, but when he saw me cry, he said that he was a brute and would not add to my present trouble. Then he broke off and asked if I could love him in time, and when I shook my head, my hands trembled, and then with some hesitation he asked me if I cared already for anyone else. He put it very nicely, saying that he did not want to wring my confidence from me, but only to know, because if a woman's heart was free, and a man might have a hope. And then, Mina, I felt a sort of duty to tell him that there was someone. I only told him that much, and then he stood up, and he looked very strong and grave as he took both my hands in his, and he said, hoped I would be happy. And that if I ever wanted a friend, I must count him one of my best. Oh, Mina dear, I can't help crying, and you must excuse this letter being all blotted. Being proposed to is all very nice and all that sort of thing, but it isn't at all a happy thing when you have to set a poor fellow whom you know loves you honestly going away and looking all broken-hearted, and to know that, no matter what he may say at the moment, you are passing quite out of his life. My dear, I must stop here at present. I feel so miserable, though I am so happy. Evening. Well, I think that's for the next paragraph. These paragraphs are big paragraphs. Wolf fact. Wolf pups are born deaf and blind with bright blue eyes. Deaf and blind. You know what? I can see that being an advantage, that we don't have to listen to your mom or your siblings whining and crying all day long. Yeah, it seems evolutionarily advantageous to me. That's my opinion. Evening. Arthur has just gone, and I feel in better spirits than when I left off, so I can go on telling you about the day. Well, my dear, number 2 came after lunch. He is such a nice fellow, an American from Texas, and he looks so young and so fresh that it seems almost impossible that he has been to so many places and has had such adventures. You know, that reminds me of The Mummy. Do you remember the Americans in The Mummy? They didn't do so well. I sympathize with poor Desdemona when she had such a dangerous stream poured in her ear, even by a black man. What the hell happened there? Hang on a minute. A what? Looks so young and fresh that seems almost impossible that he has been to so many places. And then this random, okay, she is from Othello. Oh, okay, wait, does that ring? I don't know. Dangerous stream poured in her ear. I don't know this story. It's a Shakespeare play. You're going to have to tell me about that sometime, because that really threw me off. Even by a black man. That sounds racist. I suppose that we women are such cowards that we think a man will save us from fears, and we marry him. I know now what I would do if I were a man and wanted to make a girl love me. No, I don't. For there was Mr. Morris telling us his stories, and Arthur never told any, and yet, my dear, I am somewhat previous, okay? Mr. Quincy P. Morris found me alone. It seems that a man always does find a girl alone. No, he doesn't. Can you make up your mind, please? For Arthur tried twice to make a chance, and I helped him all I could. I am not ashamed to say it now. I must tell you beforehand that Mr. Morris doesn't always speak slang. That is to say, he never does so to strangers or before them, for he is really well educated and has exquisite manners. But he found out that it amused me to hear him talk American slang, and whenever I was present and there was no one to be shocked, he said such funny things. I am afraid, my dear, he has to invent it all, for it fits exactly into whatever else he has to say. But this is a way slang but this is a way slang has. I do not know myself if I shall ever speak slang. I do not know if Arthur likes it, as I have never heard him use any as yet. Imagine the 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 radical thing to do is to use slang. And you just know that the slang from those days is like old language that has just passed away by today's standards. I do not know myself if I shall ever use slang. Sorry, I skipped a line there. Well, Mr. Morris sat down beside me and looked as happy and jolly as he could, but I could see all the same that he was very nervous. He took my hand in his and said, ever so sweetly, Miss Lucy, I know I ain't good enough to regulate the fixin's of your little shoes, but I guess if you wait till you find a man that is you will go join them 7 young women with the lamps when you quit. Won't you just hitch up alongside me and let us go down the long road together, driving in double harness? I'm sure that makes sense to some people. Well, he did look so good-humored and so jolly that it didn't seem half so hard to refuse him as it did poor Dr. Seward. So I said, as lightly as I could, that I did not know anything of hitching, and that I wasn't broken into harness at all yet. Then he said that he had spoken in a light manner, and he hoped that if he had made a mistake in doing so on so grave, so momentous an occasion for him, I would forgive him. He really did look serious when he was saying it, and I couldn't help feeling a bit serious too. I know, Mina, you will think me a horrid flirt, though I couldn't help feeling a sort of exultation that he was number 2 in one day. And then, my dear, before I could say a word, he began pouring out a perfect torrent of love-making, laying his very heart and soul at my feet. That probably doesn't mean the same thing as we think it today. Yes. He looked so earnest over it that I shall never again think that a man must be playful always, and never earnest, because he is merry at times. I suppose he saw something in my face which checked him, for he suddenly stopped, and said with a sort of manly fervor that I could have loved him, for if I had been free. Lucy, you are an honest-hearted girl, I know. I should not be here speaking to you as I am now if I did not believe you clean grit, right through to the very depths of your soul. Tell me, like one good fellow to another, is there anyone else that you care for? And if there is, I'll never trouble you a hair's breadth again, but will be, if you will let me, a very faithful friend. There seems to be a trend there. Are these like the nice guys of the past who were, nice? As opposed to nice guys? My dear Mina, why are men so noble when we women are so little worthy of them? Well, those two men, maybe in your opinion. Here was I almost making fun of this great-hearted true gentleman. I burst into tears. I am afraid, my dear, you will think this a very sloppy letter in more ways than one. Oh, we got rated. Hello, Creative Garden. Welcome, thank you for bringing your community here. What were you playing today? You were reading. What were you reading? Hey, and guess what? The auto shout out for the raid worked. I am very, very stupidly happy for that. I worked a lot on that. My name is Sidoen. Welcome to my library. I read books from the public domain. My wife, Valani here, selects a big list for me, and I pick the next one I'm going to read. Right now, of course, we are reading Dracula. Was this chapter 5, I believe, yeah. I also play games. So Mondays and Wednesdays I read, and Fridays and Sundays I play. Right now I'm playing Space Marine 2, so quite a bit of a difference. Native American Tales and Legends that finished the book tonight. Oh, that sounds actually kind of interesting. Yeah. I took a comparative religions course once, and it touched on a whole whack of religions, right? My mother brought me up Christian a very long time ago. And so I know a bunch of the Bible stories and stuff from Christianity. And I always thought those were kind of Well, boring. Like, I'm just saying, like, if they were a color, they would be a dreary dull orange. And then we get into other tales like sort of Native American tales and other kind of spiritual religion traditions and whatever you think or believe. Like, they are like, the art's very, to me, from what I remember, it's very full of reds and blacks and those kind of tones, and they're much more interesting to look at. And the stories, I think, are much more entertaining and interesting. So I'm hoping you had a very good time. Although I've never read that myself, it sounds like it would be an entertaining time. Yeah, I think I said good words. If I've offended anybody, please forgive me. I don't know all the graces or all the etiquette, but yeah, I hope you had a good time. If you need to raid and run, please by all means do so. I know that feeling. A long night of reading. The loon got the white spots on its back. I'm not familiar with that. That course was a very long time ago. We really didn't focus on the stories, but it's, yeah, but like, that's the kind of subject of stories that kind of make it more that kind of make it interesting, right? It's like, how'd the loon get the white spots on his back? Well, you could worry about the reality, and of course we go to like evolution, but of course that's not the point of a story. And yeah, maybe we'll look that up, Valana. I'm not going to make Creative Garden, repeat the story here. That would be kind of mean. But now I'm curious. Yeah, cool. Anyhow, I'm going to continue reading. Please feel free to linger, listen, or go get a snack, or have a nap. Let me put you to sleep. That is my ultimate goal here. Again, thank you for stopping by. Where were we? Here. Right. You mean manner so noble, we are so worthless. Here I was thinking, okay. Linger, listen, and snack. What a great combination of things to do. I want a snack. I am afraid, my dear, you will think this a very sloppy letter in more ways than one. And I really felt very badly. She was crying on the letter. Why can't they let a girl marry 3 men, or as many as want her, and save all this trouble? Do it. But this is heresy, and I must not say it. I am glad to say that, though I was crying, I was able to look into Mr. Morris's brave eyes, and I told him out straight. Yes, there is someone I love, though he has not told me yet that he even loves me. I was right to speak to him so frankly, for quite a light came into his face, and he put up both his hands and took mine. I think I put them into his, and he said in a very hearty way, "That's my brave girl. It's better worth being late for a chance of winning than you being in time for any other girl in the world. Don't cry, my dear. If it's for me, I'm a hard nut to crack, and I take it standing up. If that other fellow doesn't know his happiness, well, he'd better look for it soon, or he'll have to deal with me. Little girl, your honesty and pluck have made me a friend, and that's rarer than a lover. It's more unselfish anyhow. My dear, I'm going to have a pretty lonely walk between this and Kingdom Come. Won't you give me one kiss?" He is a nice guy. "It'll be something to keep off the darkness now and then. You can, if you like, for that other good fellow. He must be a good fellow, my dear, and a fine fellow, or you could not love him. Hasn't spoken yet." That quite won me, Mina, for it was brave and sweet of him and noble to do to a rival, wasn't it? And he said so. I leant over and kissed him. He stood up with my 2 hands in his, and as he looked down into my face, I am afraid I was blushing very much. He said, "Little girl, I hold your hand and you've kissed me. If these things don't make us friends, nothing ever will. Thank you for your sweet honesty to me, and goodbye." He wrung my hand, and taking up his hat went straight out of the room without looking back, without a tear or a quiver or a pause, and I am crying like a baby. Oh, Why must a man like that be made unhappy, where there are lots of girls about who would worship the very ground he trod on? I know I would if I were free, only I don't want to be free. My dear, this quite upset me, and I feel I cannot write of happiness just at once, after telling you of it, and I don't wish to tell of the number 3 until it can be all happy. Your ever-loving Lucy. Lucy got 3 proposals in one day. She's quite over the moon, I would say. Oh, P.S. Oh, about number 3. I needn't tell you number 3, need I? Besides, it was all so confused. It seemed only a moment from his coming into the room till both his arms were around me, and he was kissing me. I am very, very happy, and I don't know what I have done to deserve it. I must only try in the future to show that I am not ungrateful to God for all his goodness and to me in sending to me such a lover, such a husband, such a friend. Goodbye. Okay. Now we are reading Dr. Seward's diary, kept in a phonograph. Does that mean he recorded it? 25 May. Ebb tide in appetite today. Cannot eat, cannot rest, so diary instead. Since my rebuff of yesterday, I have a sort of empty feeling. Nothing in the world seems of sufficient importance to be worth the doing, as I knew that the only cure for this sort of thing was work. I went down amongst the patients. I picked out one who has afforded me a study of much interest. He is so quaint that I am determined to understand him as well as I can. Today I seemed to get nearer than ever before to the heart of his mystery. I questioned him more fully than I had ever done, with a view to making myself master of the facts of his hallucination. In my manner of doing it there was, I now see, something of cruelty. I seemed to wish to keep him to the point of his madness, a thing which I avoid with the patients as I would the mouth of hell. Mem. Under what circumstances would I not avoid the pit of hell? Omnia Romae venalia sunt. Hell has its price. Verb sap. These shortened words. If there be anything behind this instinct, it will be valuable to trace it afterwards accurately. So I had better commence to do so. Therefore, R. M. Renfield, ATAT 59. Sanguine temperament. Great physical strength, morbidly excitable, periods of gloom, ending in some fixed idea which I cannot make out. I presume that the sanguine temperament itself and the disturbing influence end in a mentally accomplished finish, a possibly dangerous man, probably dangerous if unselfish. In selfish men, caution is as secure an armor for their foes as for themselves. What I think of on this point is, when self is the fixed point, the centripetal force is balanced with the centrifugal. I don't think that's a personality trait. When duty, a cause, etc., is the fixed point, the latter force is paramount, and only accident or a series of accidents can balance it. And I gotta blow my nose 1 second. Okay, hopefully that lasts me a little while. I scared the cat. Where were we? Is this the fixed point? Oh, the ladder is paramount. Okay, so a lot of psychobabble. Letter Quincy P. Moores to Hon Arthur Holmwood. 25 May. My dear Art, we've told yarns by the campfire in the prairies and dressed one another's wounds after trying a landing at the Marquesa. the Marquesas? I'm gonna go for Marquesas. And drunk healths on the shore of Titicaca. Healths. He means alcohol. There are more yarns to be told, and other wounds to be healed, and another health to be drunk. Won't you let this be at my campfire tomorrow night? I have no hesitation in asking you, as I know a certain lady is engaged to a certain dinner party, and that you are free. There will only be one other, our old pal at the Korea, Jack Seward. Sorry, at the Korea, Jack Seward. He is coming, too, and we both want to mingle our weeps over the wine cup and to drink a health with all our hearts to the happiest man in all the wide world, who has won the noblest heart that God has made, and the best worth winning. We promise you a hearty welcome and a loving greeting, and a health as true as your own right hand. We shall both swear to leave you at home if you drink too deep to a certain pair of eyes. Come. Yours, as ever and always, Quincy P. Morris. See then. Telegram from Arthur Holmwood to Quincy P. Morris. 26 May. Count me in every time I bear messages which will make both your ears tingle. Art. Alright, that's the end of chapter 5, and yes. Dear God. Adjust my button seat. Chapter 6. Mina Murray's Journal. 24 July. Whitby. Lucy met me at the station, looking sweeter and lovelier than ever, and we drove up to the house at the crescent in which they have rooms. This is a lovely place. The little river, the Esk, runs through a deep valley which broadens out as it comes near the harbor. A great viaduct runs across, and with high piers through which the view seems somehow further away than it really is. The valley is beautifully green, and it is so steep that when you are on the highland on either side, you look right across it, unless you are near enough to see down. The houses of the old town, the side away from us, are all red-roofed and seem piled up over the other anyhow, like the pictures we see of Nuremberg. Right over the town is the ruin of Whitby Abbey, which was sacked by the Danes, and which is the scene of part of Marmion, where the girl was built up in the wall. It is a most noble ruin, of immense size, and full of beautiful and romantic bits. There is a legend that a white lady is seen in one of the windows. Between it and the town there is another church, a parish one, round which is a big graveyard, all full of tombstones. This is, to my mind, the nicest spot in Whitby, for it lies right over the town, and has a full view of the harbor, and all up the bay to where the headland called Kettleness stretches out into the sea. It descends so steeply over the harbor that part of the bank has fallen away, and some of the graves have been destroyed. In one place, part of the stonework of the graves stretches out over the sandy pathway far below. There are walks with seats beside them through the churchyard, and people go and sit there all day long, looking at the beautiful view and enjoying the breeze. I shall come and sit here very often myself and work. Indeed, I am writing now with my book on my knee and listening to the talk of 3 old men who are sitting beside me. They seem to do nothing all day but sit up here and talk. Can you imagine a life where you have that time available to you to idle away some hours or perhaps days just relaxing, doing nothing, still making rent? That would be nice. The harbor lies below me, with, on the far side, one long granite wall stretching out into sea, with a curve outwards at the end of it, in the middle of which is a lighthouse. A heavy sea wall runs along outside of it. On the near side, the sea wall makes an elbow crooked inversely, and its end too has a lighthouse. Between the 2 piers, there is a narrow opening into the harbor, which then suddenly widens. It is nice at high water, but when the tide is out it shoals away to nothing, and there is merely the stream of the Esk, running between banks of sand with rocks here and there. Outside the harbor on this side there rises for about half a mile a great reef, the sharp edge of which runs straight out from behind the south lighthouse. At the end of it is a buoy with a bell, which swings in bad weather and sends in a mournful sound on the wind. They have a legend here that when a ship is lost, bells are heard out at sea. I must ask the old man about this. He is coming this way. He is a funny old man. He must be awfully old, for his face is all gnarled and twisted like the bark of a tree. He tells me that he is nearly 100, and that he was a sailor in the Greenland fishing fleet when Waterloo was fought. He is, I am afraid, a very skeptical person, for when I asked him about the bells at sea and the White Lady at the Abbey, he said very brusquely, "I wouldn't fash mazel about them, miss. Them things be all wore out. Mind, I don't say that they never was, but I do say that they wasn't in my time. They be all very well for comers and trippers and the like, but not for a nice young lady like you. Them feet folks from York and Leeds that be always eatin' cured herrin ain't drinking in tea, looking out to buy cheap jet would creed aught. I wonder, Massel." And if you understood that, I'm not even done, but wow, I'm impressed. "I wonder, Massel, who'd be botherin' tellin' lies to them, even the newspapers, which is full of fool talk." I thought he would be a good person to learn interesting things from, so I asked him if he would mind telling me something about the whale fishing in the old days. He was just settling himself to begin when the clock struck 6, whereupon he labored to get up and said, "I must gang, oh dear Lord, again awards. Agent awards? Again awards. I must gang again awards, whatever that means. Home now, miss. My granddaughter doesn't like to be kept waiting when the tea is ready, for it takes me time to cramble aboon the grease, for there be a many of 'em, and miss, I lack bellied timbers sairly by the clock." I didn't understand a thing he said. Not a thing. It's like talking to a Newfoundlander. Or someone in yeah, way out there. I don't know Newfie. He hobbled away, and I could see him hurrying as well as he could down the steps. The steps are a great feature of the place. They lead from the town up to the church. There are hundreds of them, and I do not know how many. There are hundreds of them, I do not know how many, and they wind up in a delicate curve. The slope is so gentle that a horse could easily walk up and down them. I think they must originally have had something to do with the Abbey. I shall go home too. Lucy went out visiting with her mother, and as they were only duty calls, I did not go. They will be home by this. 1 August. I came up here an hour ago with Lucy, and we had a most interesting talk with my old friend and the 2 others who always come and join him. He is evidently on the Sir Oracle of them, and I should think must have been, in his time, a most dictatorial person. He will not admit anything, and down-faces everybody. If he can't out-argue them, he bullies them, and then takes their silence for agreement with his views. Lucy was looking sweetly, pretty in her white lawn frock. She has got a beautiful color since she has been here. I noticed that the old man did not lose any time in coming up and sitting near her when we sat down. She is so sweet with old people. I think they all fell in love with her on the spot. Even my old man succumbed and did not contradict her, but gave me double share instead. I got him on the subject of the legends, and he went off at once into a sort of sermon. I must try to remember it and put it down. It be all fool talk, lock, stock, and barrel, that's what it be, and no it else. These bands and wafts, bogus, and Oh, I hate this book now. Wafts and Bogos and Barguus and Boggles them. All and I hate this book. All Annette of them is only fit to set barons, a dizzy woman, and a balladerin. Nah, they know it, not airblabs. Don't ask me to translate. They and all grims and all signs and all warnings be all invented by parsons and ilsome Buick bodies and railway touters to skeer and scunner halfens and to get folks to do something that they don't other incline to. It makes me ireful to think of them. Why, it's them that, not content with printin' lies on paper and preachin' them out of pulpits, does want to be cuttin' them on the tombstones. Look here all around you, and wart art ye will. All them steins holding up their heads as well as they can out of their pride is a cant simply tumbling down with the weight o' the lies wrote on them. Here lies the body, or sacred to the memory, wrote on all of them, and yet in nigh half of them there being no bodies at all, and the memories of them bean't cared a pinch of snuff about, much less sacred. Lies all of them, nothing but lies of one kind or another, my gog, but it'll be a quare scourderment of a day of judgment when they come tumbling up in their death sarks, all duped together and trying to drag their tombsteins with them to prove how good they was. Some of them trembling and dithering with their hands that dozed and simply and slippily lying in the sea that they can't even keep their grip of them. Right. I tried my best to make that as smooth and true to the random letters that were printed in this paragraph. We have round 2 of incoming ads, and so yeah, thank you. I tried very hard. Oh dear Lord. All right, so I have a cool little timer in the top right hand side. Now, before tonight, this worked fine, but the first time we had ads tonight, it expired, and then the ads took like, maybe another minute to actually trigger. So according to the incoming ad break timer, there's 10 seconds left on that, and yeah, I don't have a number on my timer here. So the timer in chat looks like it's lining up more or less okay with the timer in the stream, and then that expires. Yeah, and then nothing happens. The warning of the upcoming ads is wrong. I think something's wrong with Twitch, and it bothers me. So we do have ads in a few moments. I pause for ads. I don't like to read during ads. If someone's interested in the story, I don't. So we'll go to a B right back screen, and our ad banner does work properly. So yeah, the Twitch server seems to be having delays, which is super unfortunate because there has always been delays in like chat and in the stream manager. Always, they never lined up with the actual ads, but their API used to be really solid in sending messages to StreamerBot or to Gwen here, my cat, that ads will begin in 1 minute. And there they are. So we're going to take a break. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Okay. I got the tickles in the back of my nose. All right, where the hell were we? Right, we just read the paragraph from hell and got it. I could see from the old fellow's self-satisfied air the way in which he looked around for the approval of his cronies that he was showing off, so I put a word in to keep him going. Oh, don't do that. Oh, Mr. Swales, you can't be serious. Surely these tombstones are not all wrong. Yablins. They may be a poorish, but they may be a poorish few not wrong, savin' where they make out the people too good. For there be folk that do that. Okay. For there be folk that do not think a bomb bowl be like the sea, if only to be their own. The whole thing be only lies. Now look you here, you come here a stranger, and you see this Kurt Garth. I nodded, for I thought it be better to assent, though I did not quite understand his dialect. I knew it had something to do with the church. He went on. And you consate that all these steins be a boon folk that be happened here, snod and snog. I assented again. Then that be just where the lie comes in. Why, there be scores of these lay beds that the tomb as old as Dune's back a box on Friday night. He nudged one of his companions, and they all laughed. And my gog, how could they be otherwise? Look at that one, the aftest baft, the beer bank. Read it. I went over and read. Edward Spenslag, Master Mariner, murdered by pirates off the coast of the Andes, April 1854, etc. 30. Or AET. It's AET, but it's like the AE is like that conjoined letter. It could be act. I don't know. When I came back, Mr. Swales went on. Who brought him home, I wonder, to hap him here? Murdered off the coast of the Andes, and you have constated his body lay under. Why, I could name ye a dozen bones lie in the Greenland seas above, he pointed northwards, or where the currents may have drifted them, there be the steins around ye. Ye can, with your young eyes, read the small print of the lies from here. This Braithwaite Lowry, I knew his father, lost in the lively off Greenland in 20, or Andrew Woodhouse, drowned in the same seas in 1777, or John Paxton, drowned off Cape Farewell a year later, or old John Rawlings, whose grandfather sailed with me, drowned in the Gulf of Finland in 50. Do ye think all these men will have to make a rush to Whitby when the trumpet sounds? I have me anotherums aboot it. I tell ye that when they got here, they'd be jomblin' and jostlin' one after that way, that 'ud be like a fight up on the ice in the old days, when we'd be at one another from daylight to dark, and trying to tie up our cuts by the light of the aurora borealis. This was evidently local peasantry, for the old man cackled over it, and his croonies joined in with gusto. But, I said, surely you are not quite correct, for you start on the assumption that all the poor people or their spirits will have to take their tombstones with them on the day of judgment. Do you think that will be really necessary? Well, what else be they tombstones for? Answer me that, miss. To please their relatives, I suppose. To please their relatives, you suppose. This he said with intense scorn. So let me retry that. To please their relatives, you suppose. How will it pleasure their relatives to know that lies is wrote over them, and that everybody in the place knows that they be lies? He pointed to a stone at our feet, which had been laid down as a slab, on which the seat was rested, close to the edge of the cliff. Read the lies on that Thruffstein, he said. The letters were upside down to me from where I sat, but Lucy was more opposite to them, so she leant over and read, and I hiccuped, because content maybe had water. Sacred to the memory of George Kennan, who died in the hope of a glorious resurrection on July 29, 1873. I hope that stops soon. I did once wonder what it would be like to start hiccuping in the middle of a reading stream. I guess I know now. Where were we? In the hope of a glorious resurrection on July 29, 1873, falling from the rocks at Kettleness. This tomb was erected by his sorrowing mother to her dearly beloved son. He was the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. Really, Mr. Swales, I don't see anything funny in that. She spoke her comment very gravely and somewhat severely. You don't see aught funny, ha ha, but that's because you don't gom the down you don't gom the sorrowing mother was a hell cat that hated him because he was a crooked a crooked a regular lamenter he was, and he hated her so that he committed suicide in order that she mightn't get an insurance she put on his life. He blew nigh and top of his head off with an old musket that they had for scaring the crows with. 'Tweren't for crows then, for it brought the clergs and the dopes to him. That's the way he fell off the rocks. And as to hopes of a glorious resurrection, I've often heard him say massel that he'd hoped to go to hell, for his mother was so pious that she'd be sure to go to heaven, and he didn't want to addle where she was. Now isn't that steeing at any rate? He hammered it with his stick as he spoke. A pack of lies, and won't it make Gabriel keckle when Georgie comes panting up the greens with the tombstone balanced on his hump and asked it to be took as evidence. I did not know what to say, and nor do I. Oh, look, dolphin facts, thank God. Dolphins have been observed cooperating with humans in some traditional fishing practices. Because dolphins like to torture other fish too, I guess. Let's see. I don't know what to say about Lucy. As evidence, yes. I did not know what to say, but Lucy turned the conversation as she said, rising up, "Oh, why did you tell us of this? It is my favorite seat, and I cannot leave it, and now I find I must go on sitting over the grave of a suicide. That won't harm ye, my pretty, and it may make poor Georgia gladsome to have so trim a lass sitting on his lap. That won't hurt ye. Why, I've sat here off and on for nigh 20 years past, and it hasn't done me no harm. Don't ye fash about them as lies under ye, or that doesn't lie there either. It'll be time for ye to be getting scart when ye see the tombstones all run away with, and the place as bare as a stubble field. There's the clock, and I must gang. My service to ye, ladies," and off he hobbled. Thank God, go away, good riddance. Lucy and I sat a while, and it was all so beautiful before us that we took hands as we sat, and she told me all over again about Arthur and their coming marriage. That made me just a little heartsick, for I haven't heard from Jonathan for a whole month. Can we please talk about Jonathan? The same day I came here alone, for I am very sad. There was no letter for me. I hoped there cannot be anything the matter with Jonathan. The clock has just struck 9. I see the lights scattered all over the town, sometimes in rows where the streets are, and sometimes singly. They run right up the Esk and die away in the curve of the valley. To my left, the view is cut off by a black line of roof over the old house next to the abbey. The sheep and lambs are bleating in the fields away behind me, and there is a clatter of a donkey's hoofs up the paved road below. The band on the pier is playing a harsh waltz in good time, and further along the quay there is a Salvation Army meeting in a back street. Neither of the bands hears the other, but up here I hear and see them both. I wonder where Jonathan is, and if he is thinking of me. I wish he were. Dr. Seward's Diary. 5 June. The case of Renfield grows more interesting the more I get to understand the man. He has certain qualities and very largely developed selfishness, secrecy, and purpose. I wish I could get at what is the object of the latter. He seems to have some settled scheme of his own, but what it is I do not yet know. His redeeming quality is a love of animals, though indeed he has such curious turns in it that I sometimes imagine he is only abnormally cruel. His pets are of odd sorts. Just now his hobby is catching flies. He has at present such a quantity that I have had myself that I have had myself to expostulate. To my astonishment, he did not break out into a fury, as I expected, but took the matter in simple seriousness. He thought for a moment and then said, "May I have 3 days? I shall clear them away." Of course, I said that would do. I must watch him. 18 June. This is 12 days later. He has turned his mind now to spiders, and has got several very big fellows in a box. He keeps feeding them with his flies, and the number of the latter is becoming sensibly diminished, although he has used half his food in attracting more flies from outside to his room. 1 July. His spiders are now becoming as great a nuisance as his flies, and today I told him that he must get rid of them. He looked very sad at this, so I said that he must clear out some of them, at all events. He cheerfully acquiesced in this, and I gave him the same time as before for reduction. He disgusted me much while with him, for when a horrid blowfly, bloated with some carrion food, buzzed into the room, he caught it, held it exultantly for a few moments between his fingers and thumb, and, before I knew what he was going to do, put it in his mouth and ate it. I scolded him for it, but he argued quietly that it was very good and very wholesome, that it was life, strong life, and gave life to him. This gave me an idea, or the rudiment of one. I must watch how he gets rid of his spiders. He has evidently some deep problem in his mind, for he keeps a little notebook in which he is always jotting down something. Whole pages of it are filled with masses of figures, generally single numbers added up in batches, and then the totals added in batches again, as though he were focusing some account, as the auditors put it. 8 July. There is a method in his madness, and the rudimentary idea in my mind is growing. It will be a whole idea soon, and then, oh, unconscious celebration, you will have to give the wall to your subconscious brother. Oh, sorry. No. It will be a whole idea soon, and then, oh, unconscious celebration. You will have to give the wall to your conscious brother. I kept away from my friend for a few days. I don't know what that means. That is what the words said. I kept away from my friend for a few days so that I might notice if there were any change. Things remain as they were, except that he has parted with some of his pets and got a new one. He has managed to get a sparrow and has already partially tamed it. His means of taming is simple, for already the spiders have diminished. Those that do remain, however, are well fed, for he still brings in the flies by tempting them with his food. There's a pattern here. 19 July. We are progressing. My friend has now a whole colony of sparrows, and his flies and spiders are almost obliterated. When I came in, he ran to me and said he wanted to ask me a great favor, a very, very great favor, and as he spoke, he fawned on me like a dog. I asked him what it was, and he said, with a sort of rapture in his voice and bearing, "A kitten. A nice little, sleek, playful kitten that I can play with and teach and feed and feed and feed." I was not unprepared for this request, for I had noticed how his pets went on increasing in size and vivacity, but I did not care that his pretty familiar of tame sparrows should be wiped out in the same manner as the flies and the spiders. So I said I would see about it, and asked him if he would not rather have a cat than a kitten. His eagerness betrayed him as he answered, "Oh yes, I would like a cat. I only asked for a kitten lest you should refuse me a cat." No one would refuse a kitten, would they? I shook my head, and said at that present I feared that it would not be possible, but that I would see about it. His face fell, and I could see a warning of danger in it, for there was a sudden fierce sidelong look which meant killing. The man is an undeveloped homicidal maniac. I shall test him with his present craving and see how it will work out. Then I shall know more. 10 p.m., I guess the same day. I have visited him again and found him sitting in a corner brooding. When I came in, he threw himself on his knees before me and implored me to let him have a cat, that his salvation depended on it. I was firm, however, and told him that he could not have it. Whereupon he went without a word and sat down, gnawing his fingers in the corner where I had found him. I shall see him in the morning early. 20 July. Visited Renfield very early, before the attendant went his rounds. Found him up and humming a tune. He was spreading out his sugar, which he had saved, in the window, and was manifestly beginning his fly catching again, and beginning it cheerfully and with a good grace. I looked around for his birds, and not seeing them, asked him where they were. He replied, without turning around, that they had all flown away. There were a few feathers about the room, and on his pillow a drop of blood. I said nothing, but went and told the keeper to report to me if there was anything odd about him during the day. 11 a.m. Yeah. There we go. We're back. 11 a.m. The attendant has just been to me to say that Renfield has been very sick and has disgorged a whole lot of feathers. He ate the feathers. My belief is, doctor, he said, that he has eaten his birds, and that he just took and ate them raw. 11 p.m. So not a.m. I gave Renfield a strong opiate tonight, enough to make even him sleep, and took away his pocketbook to look at it. The thought has been buzzing about my brain lately is complete. The theory proved. My homicidal maniac is of a peculiar kind. I shall have to invent a new classification for him and call him a zoophagous or a life-eating maniac. What he desires is to absorb as many lives as he can, and he has laid himself out to achieve it in a cumulative way. He gave many flies to one spider and many spiders to one bird, and then wanted a cat to eat the many birds. What would have been his later steps? It would almost be worthwhile to complete the experiment. It might be done if there were only a sufficient cause. Men sneered at vivisection, and yet look at its results today. Why not advance science in its most difficult and vital aspect, the knowledge of the brain? Had I even the secret of one such mind? Did I hold the key to the fancy of even one lunatic, I might advance my own branch of science to a pitch compared with which Burden Sanderson's physiology or Ferrier's brain knowledge would be as nothing. If only there was a sufficient cause. I must not think too much of this, or I may be tempted. A good cause might turn the scale with me, for may not I too be of an exceptional brain? Congeniality? Congenitally. Yes, this is the word. How well the man reasoned. Lunatics always do within their own scope. I wonder how many lives he values a man, or if at only one. He has closed the account most accurately, and today begun a new record. How many of us begin a new record with each day of our lives? To me it seems only yesterday that my whole life ended with my new hope, and that truly I began a new record. So it will be until the great recorder sums me up and closes my ledger account with a balance to profit or loss. Oh, Lucy, Lucy, I cannot be angry with you, nor can I be angry with my friend whose happiness is yours, but I must only wait on hopeless and work. Wait on hopeless and work. Work. If I only could have as strong a cause as my poor mad friend there, a good, unselfish cause to make me work, that would be indeed happiness. Mina Murray's Journal, 26 July. I am anxious and it soothes me to express myself here. It is like whispering to oneself and listening at the same time. And there is also something about the shorthand symbols that makes it different from writing. I am unhappy about Lucy and about Jonathan. I had not heard from Jonathan for some time and was very concerned. But yesterday, dear Mr. Hawkins, who was always so kind, sent me a letter from him. I had written asking if he had heard, and he said the enclosed had just been received. It is only a line dated from Castle Dracula, and says that he is just starting for home. That is not like Jonathan. I do not understand it, and it makes me uneasy. Then too, Lucy, although she is so well, has lately taken to her old habit of walking in her sleep. Her mother has spoken to me about it, and we have decided that I am to lock the door of our room every night. Mrs. Western, that doesn't work, right? People who sleepwalk can do a lot of complicated things in their sleep, including unlocking a door and like making sandwiches and stuff. It's really quite fascinating. Mrs. Western has got an idea that sleepwalkers always go out on roofs of houses and along the edges of cliffs and then get suddenly wakened and fall over with a despairing cry that echoes all over the place. But old doors, you need the key, and Lucy would have the key. What? Yeah. I mean, like, she could just, like, have the key taken. So, there. Yeah, one of them. Yeah, but like they could just batter down the door. It's probably a vampire. Yeah, probably. Alright. Poor dear. She is naturally anxious about Lucy, and she tells me that her husband, Lucy's father, had the same habit. That he would get up in the night and dress himself and go out if he were not stopped. Lucy is to be married in the autumn, and she is already planning out her dresses and how her house is to be arranged. I sympathize with her, for I do the same. Only Jonathan and I will start in life in a very simple way, and shall have to try to make both ends meet. Mr. Holmwood, he is the Han. That was the whole sentence. Mr. Holmwood, he is the Han, Arthur Holmwood, only son of Lord of Godalming, is coming up here very shortly. There are like so many double dashes as soon as he can leave town, for his father is not very well, and I think dear Lucy is counting the moments till he comes. She wants to take him up to the seat on the churchyard cliff and show him the beauty of Whitby. I dare say it is the waiting which disturbs her. She will be all right when he arrives. 27 July. I do have to say, these letters are kind of monotonous. I can see, like, the whole book is in one page. I'm not going link to link. There are anchors, but I see how far we have to go, and all I've seen so far are all these letters, and some of them are quite short, and I'm not liking this format. God, I hope it changes. 27 July. No news from Jonathan. I am getting quite uneasy about him, though why I should I do not know, but I do wish that he would write, if it were only a single line. Lucy walks more than ever, and each night I am awakened by her moving about the room. Fortunately, the weather is so hot that she cannot get cold, but still the anxiety and the perpetually being awakened is beginning to tell on me, and I am getting nervous and wakeful myself. Thank God Lucy's health keeps up. Mr. Holmwood has been suddenly called to ring to see his father, who has been taken seriously ill. Lucy frets at the postponement of seeing him, but it does not touch her looks. She is a trifle stouter, and her cheeks are a lovely rose pink. She has lost the anemic look which she had. I pray it will all last. 3 August. Another week gone, and no news from Jonathan, not even to Mr. Hawkins, from whom I have heard. Oh, I do hope he is not ill. He surely would have written. I look at that last letter of his, but somehow it does not satisfy me. It does not read like him, and yet it is his writing. There is no mistake of that. Lucy has not walked much in her sleep in the last week, but there is an odd concentration about her which I do not understand. Even in her sleep, she seems to be watching me. She tries the door, and finding it locked, goes about the room searching for the key. 6 August. Another 3 days and no news. The suspense is getting dreadful. If only I knew where to write to or where to go to, I should feel easier. But no one has heard a word of Jonathan since that last letter. I must only pray to God for patience. Lucy is more excitable than ever, but is otherwise well. Last night was very threatening, and the fishermen say that we are in for a storm. I must try to watch it and learn the weather signs. Today is a grey day, and the sun, as I write, is hidden in thick clouds high over Kettleness. Everything is grey, except the green grass, which seems like emerald amongst it. Grey, earthy rock, grey clouds, tinged with the sunburst at the far edge, hang over the grey sea, into which the sand points stretch like grey fingers. The sea is tumbling in over the shallows, and the sandy flats with a roar, muffled in the sea mists drifting inland. The horizon is lost in a grey mist. All is vastness. The clouds are piled up like giant rocks, and there is a brool over the sea that sounds like some presage of doom. Dark figures are on the beach here and there, sometimes half shrouded in the mist, and seem men like trees walking. The fishing boats are racing for home, and raise and dip in the groundswell as they sweep into the harbor, bending to the scuppers. The scuppers. They want suppers. Here comes old Mr. Swales. He is making straight for me, and I can see by the way he lifts his hat that he wants to talk. I have been quite touched by the change in the poor old man. When he sat down beside me, he said in a very gentle way, "I want to say something to you, miss." I could see he was not at ease, so I took his poor old wrinkled hand in mine and asked him to speak fully. So he said, leaving his hand in mine, "I'm afraid, my dearie, that I must have shocked you by all the wicked things I've been saying about the dead, and such like for weeks past, but I didn't mean them. And I want you to remember that when I'm gone, we odd folks that be daffled, and with one foot abaft in the crock hole, don't altogether like to think of it, and we don't want to feel scart of it. And that's why I've took to making light of it, so that I'd cheer up my own heart a bit. But Lord love ye, miss, I ain't afraid of dying, not a bit. Only I don't want to die if I can help it. My time must be nigh at hand now, for I be odd, and 100 years is too much for any man to expect, and I'm so nigh it that the odd man is already whetting his scythe. Ye see, I can't get out of the habit of caffing about it all the time. Caffing about it all at once. The shafts will wag as they used to be. Some day soon the angel of death will sound his trumpet for me, but don't ye do all and greet my dearie, for he saw that I was crying. If he should come this very night, I'd not refuse. Sorry, hang on, I used the wrong story. But don't ye do all and greet my dearie, for he saw that I was crying. If he should come in this very night, I'd not refuse to answer his call. For life be, after all, only a waiting for something else, what we're doing. And death be all that we can rightly depend on. But I'm content, for it's coming to me, my dearie, and coming quick. It may be coming while we be looking and wondering. Maybe it's in that wind out over there, over the sea, that's bringing with it loss and wreck, and sore distress and sad hearts. Look, look, he cried suddenly. There's something in that wind and in that host beyond that sounds and looks and tastes and smells like death. It's in the air. I feel it coming. Lord, make me answer cheerful. Lord, make me answer cheerful when my call comes. He held up his arms devoutly and raised his hat. His mouth moved as though he were praying. After a few minutes' silence, he got up, shook hands with me and blessed me, and said goodbye, and hobbled off. It all touched me and upset me very much. I was glad when the Coast Guard came along. With his spyglass under his arm, he stopped to talk with me, as he always does, but all the time kept looking at a strange ship. I can't make her out, he said. She's a Russian by the look of her, but she's knocking about in the queerest way. She doesn't know her mind a bit. She seems to see the storm coming, but can't decide whether to run up north in the open or to put in here. Look, there again. She is steered mightily strangely, for she doesn't mind the hand on the wheel. Changes about with every puff of wind. We'll hear more of her before this time tomorrow. Chapter 6. Could this be the arrival of Dracula on, I guess, the mainland? Alright, that's 3 chapters, and I think I'm hiccuping too much. We had a big dinner, I guess. We should probably avoid voluminous food in the future, Valena. That guy is tiring to read. And yeah, it is a good place to stop. I think that's a good cliffhanger. No pun intended, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, there's a cliff in there somewhere. But also this letter format is not my favorite. And I think we had letters in the previous book too, but we had, yeah, it was the end, or at the end of the story was sort of, I think there were some letters, is how it finished off. And okay, sure, fine, you can have some letters. But if this doesn't turn into like first person soon, I gotta go crazy. I had a conversation with someone today, I think on Blue Sky, that they like Dracula, but like something along the lines of it could have been 200 pages shorter. I suspect it's this format. I get it, we're introducing the characters in their own little way, but yeah, it's we shall endure, we shall suffer, and we shall endure. Next time is going to be Wednesday night, or Wednesday 6 p.m. usual time, and we will continue from chapter 7 and see just how much of a horrible person Bram Stoker is with his writing style. That's my assumption. We're gonna stop here and go have a snack. Yes, because, well, now someone mentioned a snack, and now I've been wanting a snack. Please do return your reading materials to the shelves before you leave. Now we won't read today, and be kind to one another.